that that's what Detroit is. Detroit is, what, 137 square miles?
Yeah, 139 and a half.
139 and a half. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, you know, there's a lot of different aspects to Detroit, and I think that's what we have to look at and bring into character, you know, bring character back into public leadership and public servitude.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, and I think it's important when we have people like you running that you're able to cast a voice that, you know, is a little bit louder because you get a little bit more media attention, though. We saw that. I mean, it was a little biased towards Duggan and didn't cover any of the other candidates.
Yeah, you know, that's a different story.
And also in the studio is Moses, who is
27, just turned 27.
And you lived in Brightmoor, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, so when we were talking about this on the way up, like, you know, Brightmoor is one of those areas where it's so much vacancy, you know, so much abandonment. The thing that was always interesting to me about Brightmoor was the housing, the way the houses were built were always, they weren't very good because at the time, that the Brightmoor neighborhood sort of started taking, you know, shape. It wasn't even a part of Detroit, so they had like no building standards. So
right, whatsoever.
Right, so the houses are going to just naturally, you know, not last there very long. And that's what's funny is that in Brightmoor is actually a big place for people from West Virginia to come.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Believe it or not, it was actually predominantly white, and I think it was part of I can't remember the name, what township it was, but at the time, you know, there just weren't building code laws, and so you had these like crappy houses built. And then by the time, you know, that black people were actually allowed to live there, you know, the houses were not in great shape. What was it like living there? I mean, did you see the abandonment coming out and like the decline, or was it kind of already there?
It seemed as though it had like a steady pace because, like, in the Brightmoor community, you're always going to see some sort of, you know, abandoned house, crack house, you know, some sort of yard or crackheads or stuff like that. But the majority of the time, it started to get extremely worse when the government started to take more of the like the Social Security, took Social Security away. They started to take the Michigan tuition grant away from students, and they closed. It was a school in Brightmoor. It was called Redford High School, and real renowned. They had just got their gym redone and everything, and as they took the establishments away, the frustration became more of an epidemic, and it swallowed the community up as a whole.
Yeah.
Like, I had my house broken into 3 times in 1 month. In 1 month.
And didn't you say the house beside that was vacant too?
The house on the right side of me was a crack house.
Yeah.
The house on the left side of me wasn't standing anymore.
Yeah. So there's a lot of I mean, and that kind of stuff is why we keep seeing this cycle, like where more houses are getting demolished and people can hide in certain places and victimize people.
Squatters.
But when you mentioned Redford High School, because they demolished that, which was a nice school.
Nice school. They had just rebuilt the gym actually in 2007. They closed the school the same. The irony in this is that across the street there used to be a police station there.
Yeah.
And a library.
Yeah.
First the police station went, then the library, and of course the school.
Yep. And at the time I had gotten tipped off, and this was right before Redford was demolished. Is the police precinct that was there that it was already, you know, it was open and people could just go in.
Most definitely.
And I went down there and there were police records. There were victim statements with their names on it.
Wow.
They just left them behind. I mean, you know, that's the kind of, you know, lack of respect that you can see sometimes from, you know, people in the city. Like, this is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard. Oh, look, we got our buddy Tim on the phone. What's going on, Tim? I was not the one showing intolerance, my friend. Yeah. No. I don't even know if there's a presence of one. There's actually somebody's, one of these like Kid Rock rednecks posted that I was an organizer for Antifa, which is, for those of you who don't know, it is the groups that have been attacking the fascists who are coming out. But am I anti-fascist? Absolutely. But no, I do not in any way belong to them. But do you have a question that's pertinent to this at all? I mean, do you have... Oh, good.
Well, I did yesterday, but you didn't want to hear it because it opposed...
No, I'm going to correct a false narrative, just to be truthful, man. Come on, I'm going to give this your last chance, and next time, you're not going to answer the call from me. But let's hear your question. I'm going to give you a chance.
Well, there's several decisions as humans we will make in our life that are very critical. One of them is graduating high school. Another one is getting a job.
This is good.
Another one is don't have kids out of wedlock. And there's been studies, Harvard, Princeton, regarding how to get out of poverty, and they're decisions you'll make in your life. So to me, it's about self-responsibility, and it's
Yeah.
you can get out of poverty just by making those decisions.
Pulling yourself up by the bootstraps.
Hey Tim, where did you grow up?
Right.
Southwest side of Chicago.
Okay, now what was that? What was that like? Is that like middle class area?
That was very middle class. Very parochial. Everybody knew everybody. A lot of cops, a lot of firemen.
Right.
Hey, Tim, this is the guy that said not to call you an idiot.
Then this is the guy who was defending me not calling you
Hold
an
on.
idiot.
My name's Ken Snap. Hold on. I'm just to put a lot of things in perspective. I am a black male. I went to school in Grosse Pointe, private school. Was a national accredited blue ribbon school. My parents. See. Hold on. My parents worked their butts off. They're blue collar workers. My mom's a teacher. My dad works for GM. They worked their butts off to put me and my sister through that school and to expose me to different things. And that was the disconnect, and that was the only thing that set me apart from people and my peers. After I graduated from St. Paul and Grosse Pointe, I went on to travel the world and do different things like that. I became a student ambassador to 3 different countries. I was born and raised in Harper and Van Dyke. I don't know if you know where that's at, but that is definitely not Grosse Pointe. I was born and raised there. My family is still there. My family's on 7 Mile and Sunset. Some of those people have been to jail, and they're still my family, and they're still a good people and good character. But we have to have a different conversation now and bridge our gaps between race and relations and different things and understanding where people are at in their situations. We have people who are hard workers who are only making $600, $700, or $800 bi-weekly and have 2-3 kids. I understand what you're saying about out of wedlock. I definitely understand. I believe in God and everything. But we still have to be compassionate as people. And remember that we have an objective as humans, and we have a responsibility to care for the next man. That is our rent here on earth. I understand what you're saying. But
Believer, my heart is filled with love, and that's why I talk about these things. The biggest problems in the African American community is we went from a 10% birth rate out of wedlock to a 70%. And I never hear anybody talking about that, and that is a huge statistical anomaly.
But Tim,
It happens in the white community, it happens in the Hispanic
but Tim, this is. Can I explain that statistic real quick?
Tim, just let him answer the question.
I have compassion.
All right, but okay, thanks.
I'm gonna answer that statistic and why it's like that. So you know the war on drugs and how it was it was divisive towards the black community, correct? Do you know that you get a harder sentence for crack cocaine, which is cheaper on the street than the powder substance? Do you know that there are more opioid use now amongst white people than black people? Opioids is crack cocaine, and all of those are all the same things. Opium was not regulated until about the 1930s by the FDA. I mean, not opioid, opium usage and putting in pill forms. The FDA made a lot of different things acceptable and non-acceptable. Opium was used by Benjamin Franklin. They put it in kids' bottles, and then you started having a different conversation when it came to like Coca-Cola. when a slave broke in and Reader's Digest depicted the slave was hyped up on Coca-Cola. So that's why they took Coke out of Coca-Cola. Cocaine was actually in Coca-Cola. So we had this divisive thing, and then once the war on drugs happened, you started depicting, black men hyped up on Coke, but then white society was still using the powdered substance, which is more. But you get a less sentence. You get a less of a sentence in jail for using that opposed to crack cocaine. And that's why so many black fathers that are in jail right now.
Yeah. Thanks for all of you for having patience and dealing with that kind of stereotype. And the reason that I answer his calls is because this guy represents, like, his perspective represents a lot of people. This is a man who looks at statistics and doesn't try to understand the context, which is what I, always trying to do. Is that's why we're here. So when you look at, for example, that black men between the ages of 20 and 30 have a higher incarceration rate, oftentimes that's because police are pulling over people because of what they look like, or we saw in New York that a vast majority of the people under stop and frisk, those people who were targeted were vastly Hispanic and black. So of course the arrest rate's going to go high. And also when, and this is true for all human beings, when you're in an environment where you can't get a good education and where people, a lot of people were just coming, there are a lot of people who right now, say in their 30s have grandparents who came here and weren't allowed in most Detroit neighborhoods. And, as a result of that and the white flight that came with it and the subsidization of the suburbs and the highways that leveled the only two black communities, and when you had a population of 2.1 million in the mid-1950s, and we now have 677,000, we still have 139 and a half square miles. But we had to get rid of lots of schools and resources, the kind of things that help prevent crime.
Remember, we were talking yesterday. It's the inverse now. Yeah.
And then, I don't really have a problem with the guy's name was Tim, right?
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with his views. Like they're not obscure views. Yeah. It's just a totally different perspective between being in the shoes and looking out the window.
Yeah.
Like we were talking earlier. I know it's a little bit on the deeper side of it, but to be quite frank, it's not about anything that was mentioned. It's not about babies. It's not about drugs. It's not even, that doesn't stem. We're talking about the root of the problem here. There, 50% of black men don't even have their fathers in the household. There's not even two family households. That's obscure. So if you're starting off without the proper guidance, without the, I figured, when I was younger, I didn't really need a lot of money. I needed more so support. Now, what is a man to do when he bumps into these roads in life and he doesn't know what to do? He's got anxiety, he's got adrenaline, he's got anger, and all these emotions. Nobody to talk to. It's hard for a woman to relate to a young man and teach him, to teach him how to be masculine and also how to handle things with dignity and respect. Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
To bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And I'm talking from experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the first things that I've learned as a white person coming to Detroit is to listen and not impose my, whatever I learned, on that situation. You listen. And, I feel like I used to work at the Free Press. I was making good money, and I thought the editor was a racist guy, and he eventually fired me. And I've been living off of $12,000 a year salary for the last 6 years. And what that's helped me do is live in areas that I wouldn't have necessarily lived, or in an apartment where I necessarily live. And I learned so much. And when I hear other white people like Tim saying these things, it's kind of like me going outside and looking at the sky and it's blue, and and there's lots and lots of people being like, no, it's orange. I read about it.
Yeah.
So when we're gonna end up we're gonna go to break, and then when we come back we're gonna take calls too. We've got Steve on the line, and then we're gonna look at some of the root causes of this. And we don't want to just talk about this without trying to come up with a solution, and because this has been going on for way too long. So we'll talk about that when we get back.
Whatever you need, it's right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Detroit police have essentially arrested patients who were waiting to get their medicine. They held guns to their faces.
It's not like he's really
Officers
not
had
that
ballistic
wrong
vests. They
with
came in
his
with
views.
guns,
He just doesn't
masks.
know he's
They
never
were
been in
put
that
jail.
situation.
Once they seize their money, they're having
know?
trouble getting that money back, even as they win
Yeah,
cases.
you know?
We find out that most people in Michigan
Anything else these days, you know,
use
like,
medical
very
marijuana.
ignorant.
They're
I was
doing it for
being
chronic pain.
disrespectful. But
910 AM Superstation has the best, the brightest, and the bravest voices in the
that's why I laughed.
So that's hate mail for today.
That was
It's like
You know, every now and again
Yeah.
do that, only because the rest of the mail I get is from amazing people who are the fuel for my work. They put gas in my tank.
I was like, I cannot stand that. I was like,
And I like to
you
get
know
He
what?
hates that word. That's why I was like, oh my god, he hates that word.
Catch it all right here on 910 AM Superstation.
Just didn't work hard.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
But see, it's
dog.
no in between.
910 AM Superstation. We're the hottest
But this,
station
no,
in
this is
town.
I feel like you're saying if you call somebody privileged, I feel like you're saying you shouldn't be here anyway.
No, they're saying
You'd be lucky to be here. You should be lucky to be here.
and they
You know?
always say, "Oh, you're not like that." What does
Right.
that mean? I'm
Just
not
keep
like
your
that.
nose down. You know. Right. Like you should be lucky to be here. You know. I knew you weren't gonna like that one.
I was like,
I knew you weren't gonna like that.
He was purpose when people calling his classmates calling him
I
right?
get it, but are we still watching
Right.
TV? Everybody still, I
That's
like to know that.
crazy.
Everybody
That's
still
crazy.
One thing I'm going to bring up.
I'm gonna ask, are we still watching
It's
TV?
interesting to bring up like the context of this too.
910 AM Superstation. The best, the brightest, and the bravest voices of Detroit.
Is that it really messes with the
910
mind
AM
that's forming.
Superstation.
And
The best,
there are
the
things
brightest,
like
and the bravest voices of Detroit.
you know, like how you
Don't
respond
believe
to
me?
media
Just listen.
is affected
It's true.
Like,
It's
it's
definitely.
really, the thing is, like, these kids don't have parents to go home to.
That's what I'm
Like,
saying.
they're
Like you
working,
don't even
like,
have
they're working
nobody.
jobs to keep those lights on. And it's like, you know, they might not have, like, college education is going up astronomically. So you're saying put yourself in debt and do something irresponsible? And then it's like, you know, some people have a lot of things to do with their family. A lot of people don't go to school. A lot of people stay at home.
And these
it's like,
kids,
who are you to judge?
they're
Like,
taking so much more responsibility on than what they're. It's kids raising kids.
it really
Like, it's kids raising kids.
And after the they're like, well, they shouldn't have did it. What? Regardless of that fact,
What's the solution
it's like,
after the problem?
even if the kid is here, you still gotta like, they're here now. You can't go back. So
Kids wandering on the street.
they didn't ask to
Where's
be
your mom?
here.
AM Superstation, giving you exactly what you need. Be sure to catch Doing the Deed with Alexander Zonchek right here on
You
910
need to know
AM
about that
Superstation.
crazy.
Is Luke Cage coming back on?
Yeah, that's what he plays.
Huh?
That's mine.
This is
Luke Cage?
song.
The song.
Oh. My bad. I didn't know. I thought they was watching the new season.
No.
So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, just queued up for him. I feel retarded.
Welcome back. You're listening to the Muckraker Report. We've been talking about, and this is the second day we're talking about it because we're trying to get in, talk about it a little deeper because it's such a sobering issue that has lasted for so long and really hasn't been, there haven't been that many improvements. But we need to talk about the demographic that is most at risk of everything from incarceration, suicide, murder, and it's young black people between the ages of 20 and 34. And Detroit's actually special in this case is that Detroit actually has a greater proportion of people between the ages of 20 and 34 than other cities and in Michigan. So, you know, this is an issue that's heightened by that. Tim called in. He's the guy who I think, and I'm not trying to say this in a mean way, and maybe to him, but not to other people. But I'm white, and I've grown up in a predominantly white community, so I know the generalizations and the prejudices and these ugly feelings that a lot of people have, and there definitely are some that are not. But so we need, when people like Tim look at a statistic, and he said, "Well,